Greetings everyone, welcome back to my channel. I hope you are having a blessed day. I have noticed many questions regarding the $1,400 third stimulus checks being garnished by debt collectors. Well, I do have some good news for some of you, and I will be answering some of those frequently asked questions in this video. So, debt collectors are still able to garnish the third round of stimulus checks from millions of Americans. Unfortunately, President Joe Biden and lawmakers have not passed a bill to ban creditors to seizing the $1,400 stimulus checks. This could be the very reason why thousands of Americans are receiving smaller stimulus checks than they had expected. Congress had prohibited debt collectors from seizing the first and second round of stimulus payments, but they could not do that this time around because the third stimulus bill was passed through a process called budget reconciliation. So if you owe any money for privately held debt, such as private student loans, credit card debt, or medical debt, a debt collector can access your stimulus funds through your bank account. I know that sounds crazy. It is really unknown whether you will be notified if your check is seized by a debt collector. However, the good news is that the government cannot seize money directly from your third stimulus payment to offset state and federal debts. And if you apply to get your stimulus check as a tax refund through a recovery rebate credit, that refund can be garnished for debts like overdue child support. We do have a few lawmakers and financial groups that are still trying to ban stimulus payments from being garnished. The American Bankers Association and National Consumer Law Center recently issued an urgent plea to fix this issue for Americans. The two groups sent a letter to Congress and the U.S. Treasury urging them to enact a standalone bill to protect stimulus payments from being seized by debt collectors. I definitely agree that a standalone bill should be passed. Americans truly deserve to receive their $1,400 stimulus checks. The American Bankers Association wrote a letter to lawmakers, and in that letter it stated, "The economic impact payments are intended to help families purchase food and other necessities to make ends meet. Many people were already struggling prior to the crisis, and millions have been laid off or had their hours cut. But sadly, there are only a few states that have already passed laws to prevent debt collectors from seizing stimulus payments. Maryland Governor Larry Hogan recently signed an order that states third stimulus checks cannot be garnished by the courts. The governor's order states that banks cannot use money in customers' accounts from stimulus payments to satisfy debts that are subject to legal garnishment. Governor Hogan's order states that it is reasonable to prohibit garnishments to ensure that Americans may use the full benefit of that financial assistance to protect their lives and property. It is troublesome and mind-boggling how lawmakers have not yet passed a standalone bill to fix this issue. Millions of Americans that need the money the most will not be able to access their funds if lawmakers don't work on this soon. So what are your thoughts on this, everyone? Please leave your thoughts in the comments below. According to the IRS, most of you will receive a third stimulus check soon. An official date hasn't been announced yet for when payments are expected for individuals who received benefits but didn't file taxes in 2019 or 2020. Now the question is, do you have to file a tax return for this year to receive a third stimulus check? For the third round of payments, you shouldn't need to take an additional step to receive your money if you're part of a federal program like SSI, SSDI, because these should be automatically issued to you. However, if the IRS doesn't know how many dependents you currently have, you may need to file a tax return for 2020 so the IRS can pay you the $1,400 for each dependent. If the IRS has your up-to-date 2019 records available, it'll use that account for payments, including anyone who used the IRS non-filer tool to claim a first or second stimulus check. The Internal Revenue Service has until the end of this year to issue the stimulus payments for 2021 and will be reviewing returns for 2020. As the agency continues processing tax returns, additional batches of checks will be sent out. So please don't worry if you haven't received your check yet. But if you haven't filed your 2020 taxes but believe you qualify based on your income levels, you should file your 2020 taxes to ensure the IRS has your latest information. The Internal Revenue Service will continue to process stimulus payments weekly, including any new returns recently filed. If you did use the IRS non-filers tool, you should have automatically received a second payment. And if you didn't, you can still file for that money as a recovery rebate credit as well. Please let me know if you have any questions by leaving the questions in the comment section below.
There we go. Brian, we've been talking about this all show long. We've got a bit of a theme developing here about spending, about where the spending is happening and whether it's happening. And you were looking into some credit card data that already shows us that it's happening.
Yeah, hat tip to the folks at JP Morgan who obviously are tracking this because they have credit and debit cards. So the data they have compiled here showing that consumer spending this month is not just picking up in a big way, perhaps a big way. The numbers here for the last 7 days ended March 19th, spending on Chase cards skyrocketed 23.9%. Now, from January up until the latest round of stimulus checks, those increases were only about 10%. So we're getting a next level of spending here as the new checks arrive directly to the households that needed it. And where the gains are occurring are obviously in supermarkets, wholesale clubs, and discount stores. The biggest increase highlighted in this report is from wholesale clubs and discount stores. So I would take that to be a Costco, a Walmart, or Target. JP Morgan noticing a 23.7% sales increase. And you can see some of those increases in that chart right now on the screen. But I do want to note here, Julie, we recently ran a Yahoo Finance Harris poll, and it continues to show a lot of these households, even though they're getting this in cash infusion, they continue to struggle here financially. That is why, in many respects, they are getting these stimulus checks here. Worth noting, most Americans said in our recent Yahoo Finance Harris poll survey that compared to before the pandemic, their household finances remain unchanged, about 52%. And so you have a lot of households that are getting these checks, and it's not out there. They're not necessarily out there buying footwear and new things to wear out to the restaurants. In many cases, they're just doing it to pay for their daily necessities like food.
Yeah, that's a really good point, and that obviously evident in where they're spending. Although, these stores do have some discretionary items, it's mostly necessities. I'm also really curious, Brian, once we get more insight and more transparency into where this money is going, to our earlier point that we were discussing, how much of it is going to be saved by Americans? Because I think there's, it's really sunk in with people that now that this has happened with the pandemic, now that people went through the financial crisis, this stuff happens, right? And people maybe want to be a little bit more prepared than they were before.
Right. You get this, at least from the data, some of the data we're getting here early on, Julie, it's consumers haven't learned their lesson necessarily. They're out there spending these checks. So they're, by design, they're doing what they're supposed to be doing. Check in, money out into whatever stores. Economic growth picks up in the first half of the year. But to your point, it would be good to save some of this money for a rainy day if households are able to do it. I was thinking back to our editor-in-chief, Andy Soror, just talked to Susie Orman. She suggested people save their stimulus checks, and that makes a lot of sense.
All right, everyone, that is the end of the video for now. I hope you found this video helpful. Please make sure to enter the $50 Amazon gift card giveaway, which is scheduled for this coming Friday. All you'll need to do is subscribe to my channel, like this video, and comment below. Thank you, and have a very, very blessed day.